Welcome to a special set meeting of the Metropolitan King County Council's Budget and Fiscal Management Committee. It's April 30th, 2025. This meeting is taking the place of our regularly scheduled meeting, which was last week, or maybe the week before, which we canceled in light of the tragic passing of our colleague, Councilmember Perry's husband, Bill Ramos. We wanted to give some time and space for our colleague and particularly also her staff. And they expressed their gratitude for us resetting this meeting, which I appreciate. But the agenda today is full. I want to make a couple of announcements related to the agenda. One is that we will have public comment. I think that was omitted in error, and the error is mine. And then two, on the order of taking action on legislation, we will have briefings on a couple of our pro-worker pieces of legislation by our central staff. We will then have a special panel of invited guests, and we will then turn to action on them. The way they're listed in the agenda is not exactly in that order, and that's just because of our rules. So that's the way we'll proceed, and we'll start by calling the roll.
Thank you, Chair Dombowski. Councilmember Balducci?
Here.
Councilmember Baron?
Here.
Councilmember Mosqueda?
Here.
Councilmember Quinn?
Here.
Councilmember Perry? Councilmember Zahalai?
Here.
Chair Dombowski?
Here. Okay, we have a quorum. We'll turn now to approve of our meeting minutes. Councilmember Barone, would you be willing to put those before us?
Yes, Chair, I move approval of the minutes.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those are approved. All right, let's open public comment now. We didn't have a sign-up sheet. If you'd like to provide public comment and you're in chambers today, we have 2 minutes. Please keep it to an item on the agenda. You can come to either podium, and just please state your name for the record so our clerks can get that. Welcome, Greg. You'll want to hit the button, wait 2 seconds, and then the light will come on.
Yeah, there you go. I'm good? Okay. Thank you, Chair Dombowski and all the council members. This legislation is desperately needed. The paratransit operators at Solid Ground, subcontracted through MV, are a perfect example of why. They are subjected to substandard wages, benefits, and working conditions while doing some of the most needed, required, and demanding work as employees for the citizens of this county. They are subjected to wage theft by being tracked and automatically docked pay for using more than 5 minutes to use the bathroom while returning to the base. They are docked pay if the line is too long to gas up their vehicles. Their mirrors and unsanitary seats both often don't adjust. Try driving a transit vehicle where you can't adjust mirrors and seats. They had no maintenance director for 2 years. Their vehicles are filthy and unsafe. They report driving with propane leaks into their coach. These workers are largely seniors and immigrants. They report being intimidated and retaliated against, which is why they all turned down my invitation to join me here today. They don't feel appreciated, respected, or supported by you. This is all a result of poor subcontracting choices. Public tax dollars should not be used for profits that come directly from the substandard compensation and substandard, poorly maintained vehicles. Those of you on the Sound Transit Board, we are imploring you not to make the same mistake on a coming up stride bid. We respect all of you and the support you've shown our union. But you're better than this. Do better than this. Please act on this legislation today and pass it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to offer comment? Please come forward. Let us know your name for the clerks, please.
Hello, good morning, King County Council. Thank you. My name is Heather McMahon, and I'm a member of Teamsters 117 and at MV Transportation, where I have been working for almost 11 years. King County Metro contracts with MV and their access services. I am here today to speak in favor of Ordinance 2025-0092. King County prides itself on being a high road employer. I know how great the health care benefits the county provides its employees are, but yet as an employee with a county contractor, my benefits are substantially behind those of my union siblings who work here who work here enjoy. Unfortunately, the difference became extremely important to me last August when I was sent to the hospital by my kidney doctor, and I needed to start dialysis immediately. After a week's stay and 3 days on dialysis, I had already racked up a $35,000 bill. When open enrollment came around and I tried to switch to a different insurance option that would include coverage to a different dialysis center that offered hours that wouldn't require me to miss work, but unfortunately they are not covered under my insurance, but they are covered under the county's. During negotiations with MV, we tried to address the inequity in our insurance quality, but they were completely uninterested in providing those standards or improving those standards of our healthcare insurance. I just hope by the time I get my kidney transplant that I will have a quality insurance where I won't have to worry about whether this life-saving necessary care will be covered by my insurance or not. I think we would all agree that the work me and my coworkers do is vital to the county's transit system and the residents who use it. We deserve the quality benefits like those who work directly for the county. It is important that any bidders that want public dollars are high road employers and have high labor standards for their workforce. And this includes wages, benefits, and care conditions. Please take action and pass the ordinance today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your story and for your service. Anybody else want to offer comment in chambers? All right, come forward.
Which one of these buttons am I pushing?
You're all good.
Perfect. Good morning, council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. I'm a business representative at IBW Local 46. I'm here today to speak in strong support for both Ordinance 2025-92 and 93. These measures represent critical investment not just in infrastructure, but in the working class people of our region. We have over 800 electricians who've been out of work for the last couple of years. And these ordinances, both these ordinances, I believe will help get our members back to work. Expanding the CWA to TIs on King County-owned property ensures that public dollar create local family supporting careers through Priority Hire, which we're all aware Priority Hire has a positive ripple effect throughout King County. It also means more apprentices will get real career opportunities, which are truly life-changing. My dad was an electrician. I got into this young. But not everybody has a dad who's an electrician or a cousin or an uncle. And so having access to apprenticeship really changes and pushes the needle for a lot of people, especially for the unrepresented communities that are trying to enter skilled trades and earn middle-class wages. Likewise, strengthening the responsibility criteria helps guarantee that contractors who invest in high standards like fair wages, strong safety practices, and local hire are rewarded and not undercut by the bad actors in our region. These policies help ensure that contractors that are performing work for King County are of the highest caliber. In short, these ordinances will put more people to work, open more doors for apprentices, and help ensure that our county's investments stay rooted here in our community. Please push both these ordinances forward.
Thank you. And for our clerks, would you just give us your name, please?
Yeah, Joe Duggar.
Joe Doggart. All right, thank you, Joe. Anybody else in chambers want to offer public comment? Okay, I don't see anybody. Turning to anybody online. If you're online and want to offer public comment, please use the raise hand button. And our clerks will keep an eye. We have one. Go. Who is that?
MLK.
MLK Labor, you're up.
Can you hear me okay?
We've got you 10 out of 10, yep.
Perfect, thank you, Chair. For the record, my name is Shawnee Wheeler, Deputy Executive at MLK Labor, representing over 200,000 union members across this great county. I am here today to express strong support to the updates for the county's responsible bidding policy. Right now, the county already does the right thing when it comes to goods, but expanding this policy to include services is essential and an overstep towards equity, efficiency, and good government. We should be uplifting businesses that mentor, invest, and hire locally, not the ones that race to the bottom. The City of Seattle already has adopted similar policies and continues to receive competitive bids. And this legislation would just simply formalize practices that our county departments already do. This is a practical way to invest in a fair economy, build capacity in our communities, and prevent public dollars from fueling practices that harm workers and weaken inequity. We urge you to pass this policy and strengthen our commitment to responsible government. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Shawnee. Anybody else online? Go ahead and raise your hand and we'll call on you. Nope, nobody else? All right. Anybody else in chambers? Last and final chance. We'll then close public comment. Thank you very much for that helpful comment. And we will turn now to our consent agenda. That's items 4 and 5. And I wonder if our Vice Chair, Councilmember Barone, would be willing to put the consent agenda before the committee.
Thank you, Chair. I move the approval of the consent agenda.
Clerk will please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Dombowski. Councilmember Balducci? Councilmember Baron?
Aye. Balducci says aye.
Thank you.
Barone says aye.
Councilmember Mosqueda? Aye. Councilmember Quinn?
Aye.
Councilmember Perry? Councilmember Zahalai?
Aye.
Chair Dombowski?
Aye.
The vote is 6 ayes, no nos, with Councilmember Perry excused.
Okay, by your action, we've given a unanimous do-pass recommendation to items 4 and 5 on the committee's agenda today. Let's advance those to the full council consent agenda ordinary course. We good? All right. We'll turn now to a briefing on, this is briefing number B00550055, related to the Medic 1 Emergency Medical Services Levy. This is expected to be on the November ballots, the number one place in the world if you're going to have a cardiac event, right here in King County, the place to have it if you want to live. And that's because of our tremendous emergency medical systems and Medic 1, founded by Dr. Kopus some 50-plus years ago. And we're going to go to the voters in November and ask if they want to keep it going. You're here to give us a brief overview of this legislation. We're not taking action on it today, but we will in the next few weeks. Welcome. You're Michelle, right?
I am.
You're not
Michelle
going to let Helen come up and join you? Nope, Helen's just fine back there. All right, here for moral support. All right, welcome, Michelle. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the committee and give us your presentation.
Thank you so much. Again, my name is Michelle Plord. I'm the Emergency Medical Services Division Director, and I'm here to provide a presentation on the great work we did last year. So a briefing. Thank you for allowing us to come. I have a slide deck here for you. I'll run through it at a good clip because I know you've got business to do, but hopefully we'll have enough time to be able to answer any questions that you might have. So let's see. There we go. So our current levy expires at the end of this year, and that prompted our regional partners and leaders to come together and say, what are the things that we need to make sure that this levy continues uninterrupted into the next levy period? It took about an 8-month period of time overseen by an EMS advisory task force representing people from across the county. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that was comprised of and what our accomplishments more later in the slide deck. One of the things I really liked about this process is that we brought people from across the county. They were able to bring their own local area community issues forward. We were able to debate and discuss and come to consensus about the recommendations in September of last year. The next step, of course, is to come before the elected bodies. There's a requirement by state law that in order to put a EMS levy ballot on or before the people for a vote, that we needed to have all 75% of the cities over 50,000 in population and the King County Council approve putting it on the ballot. And so I'm here today. We've been marching through the various cities. We have to get 9 out of the 11 cities to support it. But I like to go for 100% just to make sure that every city and party in the county is supportive of our plan.
If I might interrupt you, Michelle, that's just a little bit different process. Could you explain the routing of that city requirement? Are those our BLS providers or others?
Those are 11 cities over 50,000 in population.
Got it.
Yes, so you're right. The levy here is a little bit different than the other ones in the county. And so I'll go through a little bit of what the process was and then.
And what's the root of the authority there? Why are 11 required?
11, those are the cities over 50,000 in population.
Is that a state law requirement?
Yes,
Sorry.
yes,
Okay.
the 50,000, sorry.
Thank
Yeah.
you. No, I was truly asking. I didn't know. All
It
right.
really is
So state law
specifically-
requires us to get that.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
And in the county, it's grown significantly. When my first levy was in the 1997 one, I think we only had 5 cities. So it's really grown significantly over the years. I just wanted to let you know that the EMS levy ordinance was transmitted to the King County Council on April 10th, and I anticipate it being introduced in the coming weeks. All right.
I think Councilmember Dunn has asked to be the lead sponsor on that, and I'm going to
Yes.
join him as a co-sponsor if we haven't done that already.
I believe there are 3
Oh,
sponsors.
good, okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
I love it. So just to provide a briefing for those who aren't familiar with the Medic One program, anytime you call for a medical emergency 911, you're connected to this system that I'm talking about. We are known worldwide. We get regular folks coming from across the world coming to say, what do you do here that we could replicate in our own jurisdictions? But we don't like to, sit on our laurels. We serve over 2.3 people, a million people in the county. We, on average, respond every 2 minutes. In 2024, the Medic One system responded to over 255,000 calls in that year. And in 2023, the survival for cardiac arrest was 51%. And why we like to highlight that is that cardiac arrest survival is one of the gold standards for measuring the quality and of a EMS system. And so what does 51% mean? Well, in our area, we are 2 to 3 times more likely to survive than other comparable cities or jurisdictions. That's quite remarkable in terms of the number of people. Last year it was 288 people that were brought from death into a regular functional life. So the things that we pulled together as our value system are 5-fold. Number 1 is that we are a regional system. Since 1979, when we first had our regional levy, EMS levy, everyone came together. Everyone has a seat at the table. We deliberate on the things that are important to them. We also use a tiered system, and when you call that 911, they ask you a series of questions that are standardized, and they decide whether it's a lower acuity call and a EMT or BLS call is going to respond, or whether there's a life-threatening situation where the additional layer of paramedics are required. That is a hallmark of our system, and we reserve our paramedics for only the most serious calls. We are also equity-driven. We want to make sure that every person who calls within our community, no matter what their circumstance, what our experiences are, that they're going to get that same high quality of care. We also use innovative strategies. We have a partnership with University of Washington. Our medical directors are often staffed at University of Washington, Harborview. We do studies. We create ideas how to push the mark on improving our care. And that's deeply embedded in who we are and what we do. And lastly, we are funded by an EMS levy. There's been times where people have tried to figure out another mechanism for how to fund the EMS levy or our system. And the EMS levy, in my experience, has been able to manage the highs and the lows and everywhere in between as a source of funding. So in order to move forward with our group, there were a couple things that we wanted to consider. This is a map that our county provided, our demographics folks. One of the things that we always consider is population growth. And you can see over the last 10 years, from 2010 to 2020, we had an 18% increase, but it is variable across the county, and it's one of the things that we keep in mind. Why we look at population is that there's not necessarily a one-to-one correlation between population growth and our call volumes, but there's an association. And so this shares a little bit of an idea of how that works. As you can see, the last 7 years, population in the gray bars has increased steadily over time. But the blue bar, or it may look a little black, is our first responders, our BLS layer, our EMTs. And you can see during 2020, during the pandemic, we had a sharp decrease in the number of calls that we went on. The red line shows the paramedic responses in the community. But what I note is that in the years after the pandemic, there was a sharp increase in those BLS calls, but luckily it has leveled out, and we're really happy about that. The other thing, the flip side of that growth, is what's happening with our response times. This is another measure that we use to understand our system performance and the stresses on it. But you can see during that similar period of time, the advanced life support or paramedics are on the left, that the response times were very stable. In addition, during that same period of time, BLS was also stable. So that's an indication of the capacity and the resiliency of our system here, despite all that impacts out in our community and in those call volumes. One of the other considerations that we had is our increased diversity within our communities. You can see that on the left in the green bars that the increases in our communities of color were significant, and we wanted to make sure that the things that we were addressing in this plan were paying attention to that. And on the right, we also saw some changes in folks who were born outside the U.S., and we also wanted to understand what those dynamics are. And so we took a little bit deeper dive in that and made sure that the things that we were tending to were addressing those needs. So getting to the...
Can I ask you a question on that?
Absolutely.
I think it's a striking figure that today 1 in 4 King County residents were born outside of the United States of America. 1 in 4. And that last chart kind of hints to that. With that comes increasing language diversity and in some cases barriers with respect to English. This is a somewhat unique system. Have we developed and deployed strategies through our partners to make sure that folks are aware of how to access it and that we have it? And are you seeing any barriers there with making sure that we're penetrating down into serving everybody like you're talking about?
Exactly. There's one of our programs that addresses that very specifically. This growth hasn't happened overnight. You could see, and so a couple levies periods ago, we started to see that and wanted to address it. It used to be called VPSI, which is a Vulnerable Population Strategic Initiative, to try to reach out into communities, specific groups that may have not good access or that we were curious about what that access was. So we had contracts, and we had some funds, and partnered with the University of Washington, again, School of Public Health, to go out into the community and figure out what the needs were, particularly around education. What to expect when you call 911, what should you be ready for? Education around the fact that there's an interpreter service available at the dispatch centers, that there's also interpretive services available for the people who come and respond to you. And then also starting to look at some of the things that they're interested in the community to make sure that our interface with EMS is as positive as needed and that comes from community. So, yeah. So when we were looking at what we needed to do for developing the strategic plan for the next levy period, we needed to know what our programmatic needs are. We needed to have a sufficient financial plan to support those programmatic needs. We wanted to look at making sure that we had sufficient reserves, and then recommending specifically a levy length, a levy rate, and then the ballot timing. One of the things I wanted to make sure is that in the city of Seattle, since the 1979 first regional levy period, Seattle collects the money that is raised in Seattle, and they also manage that fund separately. And so there's going to be a delineation between when we talk about programmatic needs and the development that's outside the city of Seattle, but we do partner. And then the financial plan I will identify when we're talking about outside the city of Seattle and when I'm talking about the full fund that includes Seattle. Okay. So before we get into the coming levy period, I wanted to cover where we are now. So in the 2020-2025 levy period, it's a 6-year levy, starting at the rate of $26.5 in 2020 per $1,000 of assessed value. It was expected and is expected to generate $1.1 billion. That's including the city of Seattle during the 6-year period. outside the city of Seattle, which is expected to raise $664 million, I wanted to clarify what that money goes to. The priority of the levy is to support the paramedic services. They have no other source of funding, so it's literally the levy. The BLS fire departments, we contribute to their overall budget. And so it's not the full budget, but it's a significant amount, and they appreciate getting it. Regional services, that's the area that oversees the medical direction, oversees the data collection, the quality of the service. That is 100% funded by the levy, as is the regional services or the strategic initiatives and the reserves. Now, I use the example of a Costa homeowner. We recognize that there are other property taxes that we raise, but this is an easy way to talk to the public about what it costs them. And in 2020, it was $159 for the a $600,000 medium home price in 2020. I mentioned the EMS Advisory Task Force, and so I wanted to share what that governing body looked like. There were 20
Can
positions.
I ask you a question on the prior slide? Sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay.
It's hard to plan for a 6-year levy sometimes, and we did not in 2020 expect to have the kind of inflation that we saw for a few of those years. Were you able to keep up? Did we get it right?
Yes, yes, and in fact, it's counterbalanced. Inflation is what hits the expenditures, but on the revenue side, we had very healthy AVs in growth. So yeah, we were definitely able to manage it. We're at currently 22.1 cents in this year. So the only year that it's fixed is the first year, unless we have declining AVs. And then we might be capped. That happened back in 2008 when we had the decline in the AVs during that time period. But typically in this area, we're pretty good, and that's what those reserves are for, in case we get it a little bit off. And I'll talk about that in the risk analysis. A few more slides
Good.
down.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So I wanted to cover the positions. There were, of course, seats for all 11 cities, over 50,000. We also had 3 spots for Sound Cities Association, 3 spots for the fire commissioners, and a couple for the King County Council. Councilmember Reagan Dunn was a representative, as was Tom Goff. It's also chaired by the exec's office. I wanted to remark that there's 4 subcommittees within that, chaired by a task force member. For each of those fund areas, so for ALS, BLS, regional services and initiatives, and then also a finance one to make sure that we were making a good assessment of the risks and the reserve amounts. So before we get into the task force recommendations, I'm going to fly through them because just note that they're not every single one. There's some technical ones, and these are summaries so that I don't take up all your time. And again, the programmatic recommendations are outside the city of Seattle. So I'm going to run through these. For the ALS subcommittee, they recommended that we continue using the ALS allocation, that we have a placeholder for a medic unit in case the population and the growth and those measures that I was talking about exceed what is capable for managing within the current number of units that we have. And also continuing to have reserves. I'm going to cover the specifics of the reserves, but they supported continuing to have those for the ALS program. For BLS, they recommended an increase to BLS. BLS agencies are doing so much more now than they ever have before. A lot extra training, extra responses, responses to increases in gun violence, increases to response in opioids, and definitely felt that they needed more support financially from the levy. We also did supported inflation at CPIW plus 1%, and also to adjust how we distribute it. It used to be distributed, the funds 50-50 between call volumes and AV, or what folks contribute in terms of AV. And they wanted to lean a little bit more towards service, call volumes and service for an equity reasons. And then finally, they also supported the fire chief's mental wellness and equity and inclusion proposals. That's very important, those 2 areas. We have subcommittees off the fire chief, and that's important to them. The last group is the regional services. That committee and the task force itself recommended continuing the programs that are existing. As I mentioned, the medical program direction, support of our dispatch centers, and other programs. They also wanted to pay attention and enhance a couple additional ones. The first one is we have an incredible increase in need for staffing. We've got retirements. We've got people who are leaving earlier than expected out of their careers and switching careers. It's a tough job out there, particularly in the last 5 years. And so we put more extra money so we could have additional initial training support. In addition, focusing in on the strategic initiatives, they supported the two ones that I talked about, the community-based partnerships. They want to actually expand on those and get more community partners to make sure that we're keeping up with those demographics that we talked about earlier. The second thing is that there are some data system improvements. We've been collecting data electronically for the past 15 years, but there are integrations to other systems that we want to focus in on support. Make sure that we have sufficient data to understand what's happening in our communities. And then we have a new one. We haven't had a dispatch initiative in the past, and this one is to improve make technical improvements to the dispatch systems that are currently in place. So when we pull all this together, and again, this is the funding that was put before the task force back based off of the August OEFA report. If we pull all those together, you can see that the advanced life support is, again, still the priority, the majority of our fund, followed by basic life support, regional services, and initiatives. The calculations were $919 million, and again, this is outside the city of Seattle. My advancing is not working. There we go. So I wanted to make sure that we talked about programmatic aspects, but I also wanted to talk about the programmatic reserves. As you can see here, I mentioned that ALS is our priority. They have no other source of funding, and we want to make sure that they have some backup in case some of those indices that I mentioned are off of our projections. In addition, we have a rainy day reserve requirement by the county, and you can see the dollar amount there, totaling $67.7 million. So now we're getting to the financial subcommittee. There were two things that they recommended. One is to do a risk analysis so that they can then appropriately recommend a reserve amount. And so we did do that, conduct that study. Should be another way to do this.
Try using the arrow keys.
I tried that, it wasn't working. Oh, there we go. Different arrow, my apologies. So I wanted to cover a couple of the main drivers overall, both for revenues and expenditures. On the revenue side, of course, it's important to know what your beginning assessed value is, what the new construction levels are, and how accurate you can be. The split between Seattle and King County, since Seattle gets their own fund, and then importantly, what carry forward from the reserves that we can do from this levy period to help buy down the next levy period. On the expenditure side, the number of ALS units, the cost inflators, the adds of new enhanced services that I mentioned, and then the selection of the reserves and contingencies. So here's the risk analysis. It's a little tiny, but you should have a copy. OEFA, the Office of Economic and Financial Analysis, selected 4 of the key indices. One is the AV, new construction, Seattle, King County ratio, and inflation. And each of those individually show the least and worst case scenarios of being off. They have very specific things that they utilize in terms of indices. Cumulative, there's a range of about 31 million to up to 76 million, but that's if every single one of those happened simultaneously over the levy period. So it gives you a sense of what's your biggest and least risk for all 4 of those. So I'm going to go a little bit out of order, but it tells a better story. I want to start with a carry forward. The carry forward that we're able to calculate is $64.4 million. There's other revenues in the King County Fund, mostly interest. And at a 25-cent levy rate, it's expected to raise $1.47 billion for a total of $1.5 billion. On the expenditure side, all of those things, including the City of Seattle, is about $1.43 billion, again with those programmatic and rainy day reserves for a total of $1.5 billion. The number I want to show your attention to is the 47 at the bottom of the slide. That's the economic reserves that we would have to mitigate those risks. And you can see it falls within that range there at the bottom. And the subcommittee, or not the subcommittee, the task force felt that that was a very comfortable range to set out at the 25-cent levy rate. So I also wanted to throw in what would Seattle get. And so this is the proportion out of the entire levy that they would get, both on the sides of revenues and expenditures. In summary, from the task force, and again, this is at the period in time in September, they supported the subcommittee programmatic recommendations at a levy rate of 25 cents. Annual cost to a homeowner is $211 for an average of $844,000 home. The length would be recommended as 6-year. That would cover the 2026-31 time period. And they also recommended putting it on the general election in November of this year. One last slide I wanted to add is that recently we received updates from the March OEFA. And again, all the slides I've prepared to you today is using the August OEFA reports. So there is a change, and we knew that that was going to come. So I wanted to provide you an update on that financial plan. I can provide you a lot more details if you need them, but you can see that August 24 is just what I covered in that last slide with the $1.5 billion in revenues and the $1.5 in expenditures with a economic supplemental reserve of $47 million. Our property tax estimates have come down a little bit, but you can see other revenue, particularly in the county. Our carry forward has gone up by over 17 million, so we're up to 81.8, and other revenues are expected to come in slightly higher for a balance of 26.4 in reduction. That brings our supplemental economic reserves down to 20.4 million, but even within all of the scenario, it's believed that this is going to be able to cover the risks that we identified earlier on. It's not expected that every single one of those risks are going to fall in at the same time, and so both our office and PSB is comfortable with this level of supplemental reserves. And that is the presentation. Happy to entertain any questions.
Okay, Director, that was outstanding. I'll turn to my colleagues to see if they have questions, and starting with Councilmember Quinn.
Thank you, Director Pullard, and I appreciate you making your staff available for questions, and I'm also happy to be a sponsor, lead sponsor of this legislation. I had a question around, can you outline the needs that have changed between this levy and the previous levy? You kind of touched on it a little bit related to BLS. So I guess what I'm getting at is like, what have been the top responses in previous levies versus kind of in this upcoming, or have you planned for?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things that come to mind when you ask that question, particularly around the BLS response. We've seen huge increases in overdoses due to opioid substance use disorder. We've seen increases in people having challenges connecting into the services that we need. A couple levies ago, we started a pilot, and again, this is an innovative response to community program called Mobile Integrated Health. And we piloted it in a few areas, and then this levy was the first time that we tried to figure out whether it would be possible to fund across all agencies. Previous to that, it was only in a few piloted areas. So we actually put funds in across, and every agency had an ability to see whether they could use that money for their own jurisdiction, or they could also partner with neighboring agencies. It's really important to be able to try to mitigate the impact on those increase in calls for BLS, and Mobile Integrated Health, or MIH, helps with that. So they might respond, but then they can pass over or refer to the MIH folks, who are often staffed by nurses or social workers, to help figure out how to get them connected to services within their own community. That was one example.
And Councilmember Quinn, can I follow up on point on that before you have your other question? Yeah. So is the Mobile Integrated Health, is that like Health One in the city of Seattle, or?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
Gotcha. And so some of the funding from this is going to deploy into that type of service?
Well, the city of Seattle gets the
They
money
do their
that's
own.
raised within their own
Right.
jurisdiction, but they work with us very closely to have similar intent, similar, parallel programs within their own jurisdiction. Examples of the names out in the community, Puget Sound has something called FD Cares, and then Bellevue has a very different model using social workers uniquely, and they partner with their police folks to go out and respond, and that's been very popular.
Shoreline has a program with their
Shoreline
fire
has one.
department.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. They're all across, there's only a couple of departments that don't. Vashon just stood up their first MIH program. And so there's only very small jurisdictions that probably don't even have enough patients that would qualify or that they feel would be needed for an MIH. So they help them in different ways.
The theory is you're trying to get the right response for the need, whether it's mobile integrated health or basic life support or advanced life support.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay.
So in the plan, just to circle back to your question, in our plan, I mentioned that there was increases. We fell on $5 million starting in the first year, of which $3 million is just to go into their basic allocation, but $2 million is going to be added into the baseline MIH funding currently, and that will be then distributed out to all the departments.
Yeah, and I just had one more follow-up just based on our briefing, and I want to set this up the right way. But can you speak to the role of research? I think we've heard a lot around some challenge to federal funding and how that intersects actually with this proposal and how research plays out in some of the work to responses.
Yeah, well, all of us are in the whole nation are struggling a little bit, particularly public health, which is where the EMS division is housed. I'm very proud of the fact to be part of the public health department and how we approach our emergency response. The EMS levy in itself does not have any, or I should say our office doesn't have any federal impacts. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a ripple effect or a secondary effect. Public health definitely does, and we're feeling that. The University of Washington as all academic institutions are being targeted for reductions in federal, and so that partnership that I mentioned to you is not necessarily impacting us, but impacting them. And so we feel that in terms of our medical program directors, our partners and professors are all struggling with what to do in the future. It's very uncertain, and so what we have been trying to do is to make sure that the programs that we're supporting continue to get supported, and that any of the issues around, as you can see, I've talked a lot about equity and inclusion. We've talked a lot about making sure that we stand up to those values and that we stand up to people who are trying to force us to not work with our communities here. Very, very important to the EMS division and the public health department.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Barone.
Thank you, Chair. Director, I just wanted to elaborate a little bit on the issue of that update because the last slide I think that you showed with the updated projections was not included in our packet. So I just want to make sure I'm getting the information correctly. I think you showed that the economic reserves under the revised forecast would be about 20 million, which is below what you showed earlier in the range of like least to, highest level reserves. I think the least was like something in the 30 million range. So could you elaborate a little bit about why we feel like that's comfortable, even though that's below the kind of recommended range for reserves? Is that partly because we also, that's in addition to the 90-day reserve, is that correct?
Well, the way I describe that range is if every one of those reserves or every one of those risks happen at the same time. And so it's more likely that only one or two of them would be impacted. And so again, even though it's outside that range, we believe that also that risk of having all four of those happening at the same time over the 6-year levy period is fairly low. So that's where we get our comfort level at 20 million.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions or comments? Director, you have a comment, Council Member Mosqueda.
Just a quick comment to say thank you. As part of our analysis and looking at this and given the audience today, I wanted to say thanks to the team for answering our questions about who is providing the services. And it was really exciting to continue to see the county's commitment to lifting up strong labor standards. Appreciate that we have received clarification that the county EMTs are represented by IAFF, Local 2595. And while basic life support doesn't receive direct funds from the levy, if I understand, the backup EMTs that are traditionally deployed if needed are also represented through IAFF Local I-98, Teamsters 763, and nurses from the Washington Nurses Association. So I think that's a really great way of showing how these levies continue to invest in our community and also into the local workforce, which makes everybody else healthy as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Dwight, thanks for being here. Would you come forward for a second? Following up on Vice Chair Barone's inquiry on the risk assessment, and I want to commend the division for outstanding financial management in a very complex and dynamic environment, both within your program and then externally with what's going on. Are you confident that we have the right rate here, or do we need to tick it up just a touch given 6 years and a lot of uncertainty? I remember a couple of these ago, we had a real battle over just a half a cent or a quarter cent or something. I mean, we really do drill down on the taxation level to make sure we're not doing any more than we have to, but making sure that we are doing enough.
So for the record, Dwight Dively, the Director of the Office of Performance Strategy and Budget, thank you for the question. We've talked about this a lot, and I am comfortable, my office is comfortable with what is being recommended at 25 cents. Let me just very quickly give you 3 reasons for that. So first of all, the risk of the first year assessed value base is already behind us. So just to remind everyone, the 2026 property tax assessed values is based on January 1 of 2025 of the current year. So anything weird that goes on with the economy this year is not going to be reflected in that starting assessed value. So that's one reason I have more confidence. Second, if you look at the slide that was presented, and I think Councilmember Barone referred to this, there is a rainy day reserve of $47 million, if memory serves.
Yes.
Okay, that is also built into the levy. And so if we really get in a situation that some of those other risks start to come true, it is a rainy day. And so that's there for a reason, and we could tap into that as well. And then finally, typically, there is some underspending in the levy. I think it was also presented that they're going to underspend about $80 million in the current levy. So if that pattern continues, we would expect to see a little less spending than is projected. So if you build all 3 of those things in on top of the $20 million, I think we're, short of a real disaster, we would be fine.
Okay, that's very helpful. Questions or comments? No. Well, thank you for this presentation. You operate. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Balducci. I apologize, missed your hand.
No, it was a late hand raise. Thank you, Chair. I'm listening to this, so I apologize if I missed something. My question is about the total programs that we fund with the EMS levy. If we look at partnerships, other sources of funding that contribute to the activities we fund, is there any risk to the programs from a potential loss of federal funding?
If you're talking about out of the EMS division, I can't speak for all of the programs that support the fire departments outside the levy, but no, there are no federal funds other than the levy that support the programs that I've identified here.
And in the mobile health units as well, because I thought those were done partially through healthcare for the homeless.
So I think, for us, we contribute to the MIH programs. Some of the fire departments have supplemented that with their own funding, but the money that we give that I've identified is strictly out of the EMS levy, and local jurisdictions may supplement that.
Could I ask our council staff to just follow up and look at the whole program for the mobile health units and where all of the funding comes from, including our funding? I'd just be interested to know. Thank you. And thank you for your good work. I mean, whatever debates we may have, this is a very well-run, highly respected program with a great history of outcomes to show for the work that's gone in. I mean, people are better off because we have this program, and it's always gratifying to be able to support it. So thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Balducci. Yeah, and I want to thank you for, I think you're one of the best run divisions here in a very complex environment. Your presentation demonstrates the thoughtfulness and the preparation that you've gone through. The advisory committees and the financial task force, excellent work. Gives a lot of confidence to a complicated regional system that we want to make sure continues. I mean, we're more than double, almost triple the survival rate of a city like New York. I mean, it's an incredible story, and the residents of our region have repeatedly endorsed it, and that's because of the good work that you do. And I'll just commit, if as we reflect on this, and we'll get it passed quickly, but I'm open to making sure there's no doubt whatsoever that you'll have the resources necessary. So, you know, if we got to tick it up a half a penny or something, let us know. Dwight's saying we're good. Okay. All right. We'll bring this up at our next committee meeting, and I suspect we'll be able to pass it out at that time. I know that maybe we're looking at a couple, but I'm not sure there's a lot to do here because of the excellent preparation on the proposal side. April, anything to add to that?
No, nothing to add, Chair Dombrowski, other than we do have it scheduled for 2 meetings, but of course it's up to the committee's discretion.
I suspect we're not going to need to. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to serve on behalf of the EMS division and all the departments out there. So thank you so much for your support.
We appreciate you. Okay, colleagues, we're moving right along here on schedule, and we're going to turn now to a couple of items related to worker protection and high road contractors. Is that what we're calling? Is that the new term, Councilmember Mosqueda? I was reflecting on these two pieces of legislation because they kind of build on some things that I had done. One, early on here, responsible contracting, and then two, the priority hire. And I think it's kind of like any parent. You all know this. You want your child to do better than you, to grow and be more successful. And I'm excited to see the proposals brought forward here by Councilmember Mosqueda and co-sponsored by a number of us, which I think do that. The first of those will be proposed ordinance 2025-0092, and this would apply our priority hire program to certain projects completed by tenants on county property, as I understand it. We're going to have a staff presentation on this, and then I know we have a number of special guests who will also join us at the presentation table to give their perspectives, and then we'll take it up for action. So, where's Nick? Oh, Nick's online. I'm looking at the table, and you're not here. Hi, Nick. The floor is yours.
Hello, Councilmember. Sorry, I apologize for not being able to
that's
attend
all
today
right.
in person.
We're happy to have you. Go ahead.
All right. Good morning, council members. For the record, Nick Bowman, Council Central staff. The materials for agenda item number 7 begin on page 212 of your packet materials. Proposed ordinance 2025-0092 would require lessees of county-owned property to pay prevailing wages on all lessee-led improvement projects performed by the lessee at their discretion and expense, and also require the use of a community workforce agreement for those projects estimated to cost $5 million or more. A community workforce agreement, or CWA, combines a project labor agreement, or PLA, which includes standards for work hours, wages, working conditions, and union representation, with other labor provisions such as apprenticeship, women and minority hire, and priority hire, among others, into a single agreement. And I'll apologize right off the bat, there's going to be quite a few acronyms in the staff report. So if anybody needs me to pause and lay it out, I'm happy to do so. The proposed lease terms must be included in all new leases and amendments to existing leases that are entered into on or after January 30th, 2026. The proposed ordinance would also incorporate data from leases utilizing a CWA into the existing annual apprenticeship report and establish reporting procedures for instances where the executive awards a lease which waives or reduces CWA requirements. For a bit of background, King County has a decade-and-a-half-long history of promoting workforce development through project labor and community workforce agreements. Beginning in 2010, the council adopted Labor Policy 2010-031, which directed the county to explore the use of PLAs for county projects when appropriate. In 2015, the council adopted Ordinance 17973, which created the Economic Opportunity and Empowerment Program, or EOEP, an advisory board for the Children and Family Justice Center. The advisory board developed a general plan and recommendations that provided a framework for implementing a priority hire program, as well as providing support for apprentices and small business participation. One of the recommendations included in the King County EOEP plan was to encourage the CFJC prime contractor and labor partners to negotiate a PLA that included elements of a CWA. In May 2016, the executive issued a directive to all county department directors to pilot a priority hire program for large capital construction projects with PLAs. Priority hire is a workforce policy designed to prioritize economically disadvantaged local workers for inclusion in capital construction projects, specifically to improve access to employment and training programs for workers needing family wage jobs by supporting the hiring of residents who live in economically distressed areas. In 2018, the council established a permanent priority hire program to prioritize recruitment, apprenticeship, and employment opportunities on county construction projects of $15 million or more, a threshold which was later lowered to $5 million in accordance with the adopted ordinance. Eligible program participants included those who reside in economically distressed areas, defined as the top 30% of all zip codes in the county in terms of the concentration of individuals who meet at least two of the following three criteria. They have an income at or below 200% of the federal poverty level, are unemployed, and are at least 25 years old without a college degree. The Priority Hire Program, operated by the Finance and Business Operations Division, or FBOD, utilizes the Master Community Workforce Agreement, or MCWA, signed by the county and labor organizations, which establishes the terms in support of the program's goals. These terms include percentage targets of priority hire workers for each construction project, apprenticeship utilization rates, and diversity goals, among others. All employees covered under the MCWA must be classified in accordance with the work performed and paid the applicable prevailing wage rates as required under state law. The FBOD director may reduce or waive program requirements due to circumstances which may include, but are not limited to, reductions in construction worker availability due to economic downturn cycles, emergency projects or circumstances, sole source projects, or federal funding restrictions. King County Code requires that FBOD submit an annual report detailing the performance of the Priority Hire Program by April 30th of each year. Figure 1 on page 214 of your packet materials summarizes some of the key program metrics over the years. As shown in Figure 1, since inception, the program has shown an increase in the number of priority hire workers and labor hours worked each year, which in effect has also increased the total earnings of priority hire workers each year. According to the executive, the increases in labor hours and wages earned demonstrate how the priority hire program is diversifying and expanding the local construction workforce while simultaneously enhancing job opportunities for construction workers who live in King County. With that background, I'll move now to the analysis portion of my staff report, which begins on page 215 of your packet. Proposed Ordinance 2025-0092 would amend King County Code sections related to awarding county leases and the terms for leasing county property, requiring that lessees pay prevailing wages on all capital improvement projects performed by the lessee and at the lessee's expense, and utilize the CWA for those projects estimated to cost $5 million or more. The proposed requirements would apply to all new county leases awarded either through public bidding or direct negotiations, as well as amendments to existing leases entered on or after January 30th, 2026. The proposed ordinance would also establish certain reporting requirements regarding lessees utilizing a CWA and instances where the executive awards a lease which waives or reduces CWA requirements. I will detail the substantive sections of the proposed ordinance, starting with Section 1, which would amend county code relating to the manner of awarding lease or rental agreements. When the county elects to lease its property through public bidding, the executive must consider certain criteria to determine the highest responsible bidder. These criteria include the bidder's financial responsibility and references, past compliance with county lease terms and relevant laws, historical compliance with environmental, worker safety, labor, and human trafficking laws, and any additional relevant information to the lease award decision. The proposed ordinance would expand this criteria to include the bidder's agreement that, as a successful lessee, they will pay prevailing wages for all improvement projects to county-owned property. And for those projects estimated to cost $5 million or more, either sign on to the county's MCWA or utilize a separate CWA satisfying the same provisions as the MCWA. If utilizing a separate CWA, the lessee must also agree that the agreement would be signed by the lessee and representative of labor organizations as appropriate before beginning construction of the project. Section 2 of the proposed ordinance would amend county code regarding county lease terms. The proposed ordinance would introduce additional lease terms requiring the lessee to pay prevailing wages for all lessee-led improvement projects. And for those projects estimated to cost $5 million or more, the new terms would require that the lessee either sign on to the county's MCWA or utilize a separate CWA, which satisfies the same provisions as the MCWA. This separate CWA must also be signed by the lessee and representatives of labor organizations as appropriate before construction on the project begins. And also that the lease specifies the minimum percentages for apprenticeship, priority hire, and minority and women utilization goals, which must be negotiated as part of the CWA. In other words, the lease would specifically spell out those minimum percentages that would also be in the CWA. The proposed ordinance would also stipulate that approval of a lessee-led improvement project of $5 million or more under an existing lease would require execution of an amendment to that lease, which incorporates the new terms. Such amendments would be subject to council approval in accordance with existing county code. The additional lease terms are summarized on Table 1, found in the middle of page 216 of your packet. Now, as I mentioned earlier, current county code allows the FBOD director to reduce or waive priority hire requirements under certain circumstances, such as lack of available construction workers. In Section 2, the proposed ordinance would extend that authority and allow the executive to waive or reduce CWA requirements for lessee-led improvement projects. If the executive waives or reduces those requirements, that determination and the reasons supporting that determination must be reported to council before executing a new lease or an amendment to an existing lease. The proposed ordinance would also require that the executive report to council all awarded leases and amendments to existing leases which utilize a CWA. The data from these leases would be incorporated into the existing annual apprenticeship report. And finally, Section 3 of the proposed ordinance is uncodified and directs the executive to take all actions necessary to allow a lessee to sign on to the county's existing NCWA. If the executive determines expanding the MCWA to cover a lessee of county-owned property is not feasible, however, then the executive shall require the lessee to utilize a separate CWA, which satisfies the same provisions as the county's MCWA, and it also must be signed by the lessee and labor organizations as appropriate. In response to council staff's inquiries regarding the proposed ordinance's potential impact on county operations, the executive provided the following information. According to the executive, if adopted as proposed, the proposed ordinance would result in new lease requirements that could impact certain leases. Such leases could increase the amount of time needed by staff in the Facility Management Division and the Office of Risk Management Services to develop and process leases, and for the Prosecuting Attorney's Office to review those leases. As a result, additional staff may be needed. The executive also responded that the proposed lease would reduce the county's ability to be competitive with the private sector and be less attractive to potential lessees, which would result in fewer leases and/or decreased rents. That concludes my staff report. We do have several members of the executive. I believe we have FBOD Director Ken Guy and FMD Director Drew Zimmerman here today to help answer any questions. I'm also available to answer any questions. Thank you.
All right, Nick, thank you for that thorough staff report. And Ken is here with us, and I see Drew online. Ken's coming forward to the table. I know that Councilor Mosqueda has worked closely with the executive to ensure this was implementable. And as Ken's coming up, I just want to note that on Monday we had a great celebration in Tukwila at the Teamsters headquarters, celebrating the renewal of the Master Community Workforce Agreement 5 years in. Ken, I hope I'm not talking out of school here, but you and I had a conversation there where you indicated to me that you felt, and you've been in the county government over 3 decades, I think, that this was the most successful program that you had seen in your time here for achieving its goals. And I don't know if you want to expand upon that, but pretty incredible testimony.
Be happy to do that. For the record, I'm Ken Guy, Director of the Finance and Business Operations Division. And this may age me a little bit, but I've worked for the county for a little over 30 years altogether. And what I was saying is that the Priority Hire Program is the one that I think is the most impactful that I've ever had the opportunity to work on, because it not only creates jobs, it creates careers, and it really transforms lives. And so we're seeing that throughout the program, every year since 2018. And so not only that, but in the last 5-year period, there have been, 4,000 priority hire jobs that have, people who are participating on our county projects. And it's brought in $35 million over 5 years. That is money flowing, back into wages that go into our communities and directly benefits those communities. So it's transforming lives, it's transforming communities, and I just think it's a great program.
And you've had a chance to work with Councilmember Mosqueda's office on this, and from an implementation perspective, it's my understanding you believe that you can get it done.
Yeah, we've had the opportunity to look at the ordinance. We appreciate the opportunity to review it. I'll defer to my colleague Drew Zimmerman, the Facilities Management Director, to talk specifically about the leases. But I think as far as applying the Master Community Workforce Agreement, that is doable. And we think that, perhaps the easiest way for us to implement this is similar to how we implement it for any county contractor where a construction contract is over $5 million. What we do is attach that Master Community Workforce Agreement, and it becomes part of the terms and conditions of that construction contract. And we would do the same here. It would be attached to the leasee's terms and conditions.
Yep, makes sense. Okay, Drew, you've been queued up. Anything you want to add?
Good morning, everyone. Drew Zimmerman, Acting Director, Facilities Management Division. Thank you for having me here today. I do concur with Ken that this is, of course, doable on our end. We do think that there will be some certainly more complicated lease negotiations that will take place in a few of our areas, and some potential impacts on some of our smaller leaseholders, such as small business, coffee shops, things like that, in a few of our areas. But overall, we do feel like this is something that we can implement within our future leases and can be supportive of.
All right, very good. Thank you so much. With that, I think we should turn to our panel of invited guests. Councilmember Mosqueda. Ken, looks like you might have one more thing to add. Nope, you're all good? Okay. We are very happy to have Lisa Bogardus and Billy Hetherington and I think Christina Detweiler here to join us. Lisa, it is really lovely to see you again. I was reminded in the history that Nick was giving as you're coming forward when we adopted in 2015 our Economic Opportunity and Empowerment Program, a name only I could come up with, I think, because it's hard to say. But you served on the advisory group. That was the program we overlaid on the Children and Family Justice Center to bring forward these workforce requirements. And my recollection of it is we hit it out of the park on almost every one. More women hired, more people of color hired, more veterans hired. The one area we were a little shy on, I think, was youth. That was a little harder to do, but we demonstrated that this kind of program could really inject significant economic opportunity, as well as what Ken Guy said, career training opportunities into our projects. And so I want to thank you in particular for what's now become a decade of work and commitment to this kind of program here in partnership with the county. And of course, Billy, you've been a good ally as well, but I wanted to give special recognition to Lisa, who's been with us on this journey for a decade now, and I have deep gratitude for your commitment to it and the expertise and skills that you've brought forward. So I've talked too much. Councilmember Mosqueda is the prime sponsor on this, and I think she should be given the opportunity to make some introductory remarks and welcome the panel.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I'm thrilled that we have an opportunity to have this esteemed panel here today. Thank you very much to the presenters already. I want to start by thanking the chair for having these bills in your committee, coupling them together, and thanks to Chair Zahalai and Councilmember Pete Van Ruytbauer for agreeing to have both of these bills so that they could be heard in combination. I want to thank my co-sponsors, Councilmember Quinn, Councilmember Barone, Councilmember Dombowski, for your work on both these pieces of legislation. To start off with, in this discussion about community workforce agreement, I want to thank Nick Bowman, who has been tremendous in working with our staff over the last near year, and along with Kendall Moore, our legal team, in partnership with the executive. We began this conversation with the executive branch about June of 2024 to start to get some information from them, and I really want to thank Michael White, Penny Lipso, and the entire procurement team. As you heard from Ken Guy today, thank you so much for your ongoing conversations with us. Drew Zimmerman, who is here online, and Lorraine Patterson-Harris, who is among many who provided some feedback. Colleagues, I think that we bring this legislation forward in the vein of believing that the public dollars should go to further the public good. And we do that by investing in high road employers, by investing in workforce economic stability and in workforce health, investing in apprenticeship utilization and hiring and recruiting goals from economically distressed areas. And we believe that this goal is furthered through community workforce agreements like the one that was celebrated on Monday with the Master Community Workforce Agreement. Congratulations to Executive Braddock and the entire executive team and the entire labor and community that is going to benefit from this Master Community Workforce Agreement. We believe that community workforce agreements, or CWAs, we believe in them because the data is clear. They get more people into good paying jobs with benefits that can support families. They put more money into our local economies, as Ken already described today, and they help get more people into the pipeline for good jobs, new workers into the economy. They get folks who are restarting their careers into good living wage jobs, and they get folks who are re-entering the workforce into these good jobs as well. Community workforce agreements help address the demand for skilled labor in the trades, and we are quite literally helping to build our county infrastructure as we build the future. That's why I think it makes sense for us to expand on the successful labor standards that have already been put into place. You mentioned the history of this work. Thank you. We know that Councilmember Quinn had a role in that as well within the departments. Thank you all for the work that you've done. We want to see the major tenant improvement projects have the same application and take place. Those that take place on county-owned property should have the same application of a CWA when it comes to tenant improvements. Thank you for flagging this issue for us. I think, Billy, you reached out to us at the beginning of last year and said there seems to be a gap that we should be filling here. And this is our commitment to you to help fill the gap. We already have strong CWA standards for the county-owned property leases at the get-go, and we want to extend that to tenant improvements over $5 million or more on county-owned land. I really appreciate that we have helped to provide clear direction here for tenant improvements. And again, as you heard from the central staff discussion, this is doable. The scope is manageable. There's only been 8 tenant improvement projects over the last decade, less than 1 a year. Thank you to the executive for helping to pull this data and in partnership with the building trades be able to understand if this was a manageable ask, and it does seem like it's manageable. So I'll stop with my comments there and turn it over to the esteemed panel that you already introduced. Thank you so much. And if you'd like me to welcome them back again, thank you so much. And this is a great extension of the celebration you all had on Monday. We have the panel with us, Lisa Bogardus, the Assistant Executive Secretary from the Seattle Building and Construction Trades, Billy Hetherington, the Political Director of Laborers Local 242, LIUNA, and Christina Dedewiller, a Building Trades Consultant online, and apologies for your last name. So thank you three for being here with us, and I will stop my comments there.
Who's going first?
Hi, I'm a pro. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councilmember Mosqueda. Yeah, Billy Hetherington again, Political Director for Labor's Local 242. And, the reason I brought this to Councilmember Mosqueda is, the fact that while for years now I worked with y'all doing stuff like this, I did spend 15 years out in the field, in the construction industry, doing the work of a laborer. And during that time, I did work on 2 different projects at King County Airport, on 2 large hangar projects that were on leased land. And, you know, looking back on those projects, to think if this type of contract was applied to those projects and being intentional on hiring local people in King County, apprenticeship utilization, and having that intentionality on those projects would have gone a long way and, you know, getting folks to work in the industry. And that's kind of been my goal after I came out of the field. And you all, you know, with the celebration of our 5 years of the Master CWA, and just looking at this as kind of just closing a small loophole that we did not include this originally in the original CWA, will go a long ways. And, you know, a lot of the council members here have been really great. Pete Von Reichenbauer, Councilmember Balducci, Councilmember Quinn, your predecessor, Up to Grow, have done really great things in the community with promoting, you know, construction pre-apprenticeship and giving money out of the county budget to promote these opportunities to our youth. And we need to be, and you've done a great job already, but to add this to the pile of being intentional on these type of large projects will go a long way. And just thank you, Councilmember Mosqueda, for working on this with us. And you know, just hope we can get it passed and move to council.
And Lisa Bogardus with the Seattle Building Trades. Thank you for all of the kind words today. And it was funny, as Ken was talking earlier, I leaned over to Billy and I said, well, you know you've been around for a long time when you remember when they talk about the history and you were there. I negotiated the CFJC CWA. I also was on the initial priority hire committee. Thank you for remembering that, Councilmember Dabowski. So anyway, you know you've been around a while, which is a good thing. Not 30 years, but I'm my 11th. So it's been a while, but it's been a great ride. And I have to say, one of the kind of when I look back at my career at the building trades, the things that I'm most proud of is the work I've done with the county. And I can't thank Ken's team and the council and the former executive Dow Constantine and now Shannon Braddock for your support and your partnership through this journey. I think that when we look at it, is the data that really speaks. You can come out with a lot of, you know, the anecdotal, here's a good story, and those are great to hear. But when you look at the really amazing data that's come out of the county's program, it only makes sense to find areas where we can continue to expand that. And the idea that it could be expanded to the lease projects, as Billy pointed out, the ones that have been missed, let's grab those in the future. Let's create these opportunities. And I want to also give a shout out to the county for expanding the program already into other municipalities and school districts. Right now, we're in the process of completing Tyee High School under a grant that was provided for administration. So they've piloted a CWA, and we have great results right now with Tyee. We have a model that's similar to what you're thinking of doing today, and I know it was mentioned in some of the materials and discussed, but the Port of Seattle already has a policy, and we have 2 projects right now at the Port of Seattle that are being performed under a PLA that we negotiated, the building trades negotiated with Hensel Phelps. And we've had great results. It's a Delta and an Alaska project. They're running about 18% apprenticeship utilization and 25 to 30% to 33% for diversity on those projects for the apprenticeship program participation. And so we're seeing the results, and it's been very successful. We also just negotiated a PLA on Des Moines Creek West with Perlo Construction, and Panattoni is the developer. Again, that was through the Port of Seattle. They have a ground lease with the port. We have prevailing wage and apprenticeship utilization on all of their tenant projects. I have not heard, and it's been years now that we've had that. I have to give a shout out to Dale Bright from the laborers, who was spearheaded that program to get that policy in place. I've not heard reduced bidders. I have not, maybe there are, nothing that's risen to the level that it's created a look again at that policy or raised any issues. But again, it's created good paying jobs, brought money back into communities. The $5 million threshold, I think, is standard in the region. So I think all the pieces and the components for this ordinance going forward to make it successful and to expand already a successful program it's ready to go. So thank you again, and thank you again to Councilmember Dembowski for coming down to the hall and participating in the signing ceremony. We missed you, Councilmember Mosqueda, but well, next 5 years we'll have you down again. So anyway, thank you. And
good morning. Christina Detweiler here. Just want to weigh in briefly. I'm the attorney for Seattle Building Trades and multiple other Seattle and Washington State building and construction affiliate labor unions. Not to be repetitive, but I think as we've heard here today, the King County Master Community Workforce Agreement has been a tremendous success. Across the board, both in delivering project stability and projects in and efficiently and under budget and on time, but also in the workforce development arena, providing opportunities to disadvantaged individuals, to veterans, to people of color through the priority workforce. The numbers speak for themselves that have all been listed here this morning. So there's really, to me, there is no explanation for why we wouldn't extend this and take the next step to extend it to leases over $5 million. It can be done legally. The ordinance is well written, it's well tailored. It addresses the exceptions where we need to have some exceptions. It's it's just the next step in the progression of your policy that you've already adopted and recognized as sound for King County. This is the next progression in that process. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, any further questions or comments to panelists or staff? Okay, I don't see anyone. Just because we didn't have a slide, but Nick Bowman, our staffer, mentioned it in Figure 1 on page 214 of the materials, and you mentioned some of the data, but I just want to put it on the record here verbally. From 2018 to 2023, the number of priority hire workers started at 217, and by 2023, we're up to 1,077, so almost a quintupling. Total earned by priority hire workers, and again, priority hire workers, we're talking about folks who are residing in zip codes that have a tremendous economic disadvantage or challenges, right? So this is a hand up into economic opportunity. 2019, there were $3.2 million in wages paid. That had more than tripled by 2023 to $10.7 million of wages paid. Priority hire total labor hours in 2018, that was 45,000 hours. It was up to 205,000 hours in 2023. And the participation rate has risen to about 30%. So from starting out about 20%. So really, as Ken, you opened up, good data. I don't know if you want to add anything to those stats, but
just quickly add that the 2024 annual report will be coming over to the council, and I was actually reflecting an update based on that. So it actually shows over the last 5 years, 4,000 priority hire workers, 35 million going back into our local communities. So it's been a fantastic program in terms of creating more local jobs, local careers, and diversifying the construction workforce.
it's really good. So there's no reason, in my view, that this shouldn't apply not just to projects built on county-owned land by the county, but to folks that are leasing our land and putting up a big project over $5 million. You know, we have the airport, as Billy mentioned. We also have some harbor, what we call harbor bond properties that were bought in the early part of the 20th century. The county owns land for support economic and industrial development. Someday there could be projects on those that this could apply to, and I'm sure there's situations that we're not thinking of. But I want to commend my colleague, Councilmember Mosqueda, for taking this idea brought forward by laborers and others and bringing it forward to us, working it through the process, making sure it's ready to go. And I turn to you to put it before the body, Councilmember Mosqueda.
Okay, I'll hold my comments for closing, Mr. Chair, if that's okay.
All right, why don't you move the motion, or move the ordinance?
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I move proposed ordinance 2025-0092.
All right, that's before us. And comments, starting with Councilmember Quinn.
Yeah, if I could, I just wanted to say that I'm very supportive of this legislation, which is why I co-sponsored it. Folks were talking about remember when, and for me, this will be dating myself. Actually, I was a part of the negotiating team for the first PLA and CWA for Sunset Heathfield. And that's in your district, Councilmember Balducci, if you remember. It was the capital project in wastewater. It was with Dale Bright, but I would say it's for all those reasons and what you discussed here. The investment that King County makes in its projects, a commitment to paying prevailing wage. I want to say specifically to CWAs, and it was touched on before, but it's creating opportunities for residents that work on projects that come from zip codes like mine in District 5. And so I'm very glad to see also that we're actually tracking the implementation of the CWAs and PLAs. And I also want to thank Councilmember Mosqueda, and this is getting a little ahead, but I need to make sure I can get out of here pretty soon, but specifically for the striking amendment and the language related to utilization of women and minority businesses, small businesses. And to me, it's an example, or it's not only an example of our commitment to our values of equity, but also that inclusion actually is a strength in this region. That's how we view it. And in particular in this government. So I just wanted to make those comments and then throw my little history into it as well, because again, I did it as an employee, but I was very excited, and I'll even throw out another name because I think he'd be happy to hear it. Bob Zapone was at that table. So I'm excited around the Community Workforce Agreement and the Master Agreement, which, I just have a lot of history in this. And back then, it was a pilot. It was a pilot. Would it work? It's been working, and we've been tracking it. So again, I'm happy to sign on to this legislation. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Councilmember Quinn. Councilmember Balducci.
Thank you, Chair. I also want to speak in favor, and we'll vote in favor of this. I wanted to say a few things in addition. A lot has been said, and all the reasons why this is an important thing to do have been very well covered. But just to hit on a few of my pet issues. First of all, it's really important to me that when we expand a program, create a new program, do something new, that it be thought through, that it be implementable, that we give the kind of attention to detail it takes to make the program a success so it doesn't sort of stutter out of the gate. I just really want to thank Councilmember Mosqueda and her team and everybody who worked with them, because this has obviously been very well thought through, and I appreciate that. That's important. It's easy to have ideas. It's a lot harder to implement them, and this seems to be very ready to go. Second pet issue of mine is when we talk about the impacts and the ability to expand good working wage opportunities, jobs, careers to people. I'm a big fan of us doing everything we can here. We spend so much time working on the cost and affordability side of the balance sheet, where housing costs too much and transportation costs too much and childcare costs too much. To be able to actually do something to give people the ability to earn a living wage on the income side is really important, especially as Councilmember Mosqueda pointed out, with government dollars that are being invested. Going back to the Priority Hire Initiative, I have always been interested, and I hope that someday we can have a conversation about expanding that program. It does wonderful things for the zip codes where it applies. I represent a district where there is no zip code that meets the poverty or the diversity scores that we look for these kinds of programs. but I do have census tracts that do. Whole neighborhoods where there are very diverse, very low income, but their numbers are swamped by the wealth in other parts of the district, so they don't show up as being people in need, yet they are. And so I would love to have us find a way someday to expand that program to be more inclusive, to allow more people to have the benefits of it. Third out of four, third pet issue is anytime we open up procurement for any reason, I really, really encourage Ken, Guy, your folks to look for ways to make procurement easier, more streamlined. If there are opportunities to limit old requirements that aren't really serving a key purpose anymore, to combine processes, combine forms, anything we can do to make it easier so that our projects move faster, are competitive, that we get these jobs out into the world. I really appreciate that. And I did hear from Councilmember Mosqueda that they give thought to that in this process as well. And then finally, just coincidentally this morning, I was listening to a debate. You know, we're all sort of debating the ability of blue metropolitan areas to govern, to get big things done. There's, you know, the book Abundance is the latest iteration of this debate. And I was once again listening to people talk about how whether labor requirements are a problem, whether they cause cost, whether they cause delay. And I just want to remind everyone, as somebody who spends an awful lot of time looking at big capital projects, trying to move them faster, trying to make them affordable, our peer jurisdictions in other parts of the world move way faster than we do, are way cheaper than we are, and far more unionized. So it's not the good jobs, it's not the good labor standards that cause the problems we have. It's source to other things that we need to look at as government. So all that to say, I'm very much in favor. I would love to add my name as a co-sponsor today, please, and I look forward to voting in favor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Balducci. Other comments? Councilmember Mosqueda to close.
Well, thank you all.
Chair, sorry. I don't know if you saw my hand. Sorry.
No, I didn't. It fades into the beautiful blue sky. I'm not sure where that's coming from, Councilmember Barone. Go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry. Before Councilmember Mosqueda gets to close, I just wanted to add my gratitude to her and her team for the work that they've done and working with our team on some both of these pieces of legislation. So very proud to be a co-sponsor of this, and just, you know, I see this as, you know, living our values here in King County. So really appreciative of this proposal and looking forward to supporting it.
Thank you so much. Okay, Councilmember Mosqueda.
Well, thank you all so much. I think that you all have attested to the value of this bill. This is what it looks like when we put the public dollar into the public good. Policy just like this is working. We have seen the evidence here in King County. As you heard from Lisa, we have seen the evidence as well from the Port of Seattle. This is a great example of us standing up and doing the right thing for our community. It's good for employers, it's good for workers, it's good for our local economy. I want to thank my colleagues on council for their support. Thank you again, Councilmember Quinn, Dembowski, and Barone, and thank you, Councilmember Balducci, for adding your name as a co-sponsor as well today. I really want to thank Chris Lampkin, our Deputy Chief of Staff, who is in the audience here today, for his tireless hours and commitment to getting this policy right in partnership with Nick Bowman from Central Staff, Kendall Moore, and the executive team. Really thank you very much for your hours as well. Thank you for letting me call you at all times of the day and talk through policy. And to the entire executive team, your partnership and your feedback has made this process and this policy stronger. So thank you for your leadership. I also want to thank King County International Airport. We had a direct conversation with them as well, and their feedback and support has been really invaluable. So with that, I just want to again thank members of the labor community for bringing this to us. Your partnership with the county is improving the health, the quality of life, and the well-being of everyone, and we do that by expanding and standing strongly in support of labor standards being applied to tenant improvements. Congratulations on the signing of the Master Community Workforce Agreement on Monday, and thank you for helping work on this policy to extend that good work to tenant improvements on county-owned properties. No amendments, Mr. Chair.
Wow, no amendments. Okay, thank you, Councilor Mosqueda. And let me add one bit of thanks to my Chief of Staff, Christina Logsden. She told me the other day that the original Master Workforce Agreement was one of your top 5 pieces of legislation that you've worked on in your 10 years here. And She's here with us today, and I want to extend my gratitude to you, Christina, for helping birth this, along with many, many other parents who have participated in the progress. So thanks so much. With that, I ask our clerk to call the roll on proposed ordinance 2025-0092. That's a due pass recommendation.
Thank you, Chair Dembowski. Councilmember Balducci?
Aye.
Councilmember Baron?
Aye.
Councilmember Mosqueda?
Aye.
Councilmember Quinn?
Aye.
Councilmember Perry? Councilmember Zahalai?
Aye.
Chair Dembowski?
Aye.
The vote is 6 ayes, 0 noes, with Councilmember Perry excused.
All right, the committee has given a unanimous due pass recommendation to proposed ordinance 2025-0092. Let's expedite that to the full council. We'll keep it on the regular calendar so we can talk a little bit about it. And thank you very much for everybody who participated in this. Congratulations. Turning now to our next action item here. This is proposed ordinance 2025-0093. Which would enhance our criteria in our responsible contracting legislation. We are going to start with a briefing from staff. Looks like Brandy is going to lead that. Is that right, Brandy?
Yes, I am.
All right, Brandy Perbell is going to lead our briefing. We then have similar to our last piece of legislation, a panel of guests who will join us, and then we'll take it up. Brandy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, council members. Brandy Parabello with Council Central staff. All right, is that better? Okay. The materials for this item begin on page 234 of your meeting materials packets. Proposed ordinance 2025-0093 would require the executive to consider specific criteria when determining whether a bidder or proposer qualifies as responsible when awarding a contract for public works, tangible personal property, or services in the amount of $100,000 or more. Just as brief background, in 2012, the King County Council adopted Ordinance 17310, which requested the executive to develop and submit to council supplemental bidder responsibility criteria in the form of a report, and this was to apply to construction projects. In July of that same year, the King County Finance and Business Operations Division, also known as FBOD, submitted a report that included this requested criteria. Subsequently, in 2016, the council adopted Ordinance 18372, which required the executive to develop responsibility criteria to evaluate bidders seeking a contract of $100,000 or more for public works projects or for any lease of county-owned property to determine whether a bidder or proposer's historical compliance with environmental, worker safety and labor laws, rules and regulations established the bidder or proposer to be a responsible contractor. That brings us to today with the proposed ordinance in front of you. The proposed ordinance would amend the King County Code to codify a more detailed list of criteria that FBOD must use in determining whether a bidder or proposer is a responsible contractor when contracting for public works, tangible personal properties, or as we say in layman's terms, goods, and services. Table 1, which is on page 235 of your packets, provides a list of the proposed criteria in the underlying ordinance. Categories of criteria include those related to demonstrating compliance with established regulations and laws, provision of high-value wages and benefits to employees, support of small business growth, and support of the ability of employees to organize, among others. Executive staff at FBOD have indicated that the division already includes some of these criteria, such as those related to compliance with state, federal, and local laws and regulations in its procurement documents. In addition to codifying the specific responsibility criteria, the proposed ordinance would allow for the executive to either resolicit for bids or enter into direct negotiations with a bidder or proposer in the event that the executive receives only one bid and determines that the bidder or proposer does not meet the responsibility criteria. Lastly, the proposed ordinance would require the executive to consider whether a bidder or proposer meets all responsibility criteria over price and making a final determination of award of a contract. In their feedback, executive staff indicated concerns that some of the criteria may create barriers for small contractors because all of the listed criteria might not be applicable. FBOD also stated that staff might see an increase in workload as a result of having to investigate whether a bidder or proposer has met certain criteria. Councilmember Mosqueda has developed and is proposing striking amendment S1 to address these concerns, and I'm happy to brief that striking amendment now, or I can hold for questions. All right. So you will find the striking amendment on page 249 of your materials, and the striking amendment would do the following. Make clear that the criteria should be considered only as applicable to each bidder or proposer. Require the bidder or proposer to certify or attest to compliance with each criterion. Specify what constitutes high-value wages and benefits. Remove language allowing the executive to enter into direct negotiations where the bidder or proposer is found not to be compliant with the criteria. Add language allowing the county to terminate a contract in whole or in part if the bidder or proposer is later found to be out of compliance with the criteria after having been awarded the contract. Remove language requiring the executive to consider compliance with criteria over price in making a determination of award. And finally, providing an effective date of September 1st, 2025. There's also a title amendment T1 that would reflect the addition of the effective date. And we do also have 2 line amendments to the striker, and I'm happy to answer questions or brief those. Sure. So we do have a walk-on amendment sponsored by Councilmember Mosqueda, and you should have received that at 6:05 p.m. last night in your email. It's Amendment 0.5, and it would revise language related to labor considerations in order to better convey legislative intent and to make the legislation more implementable. And Amendment 1, which was emailed to members yesterday at 10:06 a.m., would clean up a mistake in the underlying code by striking duplicative language that was added in 2012. And it would also correct language for consistency of use.
Okay, Brandy, thanks for the excellent overview. Let's see, Ken, from the executive side, I know Councilor Mosqueda's office has worked closely with you. Councilor Mosqueda, welcome to the club. I did this in the first iteration, I think in 2016, as Brandy talked about, where I think I started with the basic legislation. I thought we ought to have contractors who were decent on the environment, good on worker safety, and complied with labor laws. And I remember at the time Ken saying, well, Rod, it's got to be implementable. We don't want to overburden the proposers. And we worked together to develop a fairly straightforward form that bidders could check the box on. But I think it didn't interfere with achieving the objective to say, if you've got a company that has a track record of putting workers at risk to their health and safety, or violating our environmental laws, or not meeting labor standards, you're not for us. You're not who we want to be doing business with here at the county. I really appreciate Councilor Mosqueda's supercharging of the idea and the vision, because I think I've not heard in the almost 8 years or so that we've adopted the first that it's been a real problem for us. I think we've been able to achieve the vision there. But we'll turn it to Ken to get his thinking on this one. He's a tough grader, Councilor Mosqueda. Yeah, on the striker, yes. Thank you. Ken?
For the record, I'm Ken Guy, Director of the Finance and Business Operations Division. And Councilmember Dembowski, you're correct. You know, we've started working on this, I think, in 2012 and then again in 2016. So we have a good foundation for having contractor responsibility criteria. And we, in looking over the criteria that are part of this ordinance, there's 19 criteria. Procurement fully applies 2 of those, partially applies 15. And what I mean by partially is construction contracts may have it, some other contracts may not, and then we don't apply 2. So there's already a solid foundation for applying responsibility criteria. And we greatly appreciate the opportunity to review the ordinance and provide our input and suggestions. And the striker incorporates all of those suggestions. And our suggestions were mainly focused on how we would go about implementing the ordinance. And so, you know, I do think there's still some uncertainty about how contractors may react to the additional criteria, especially our small businesses. So, you know, previously, Some of our small businesses have said, the county's contracting process can be burdensome and create barriers for them. And we think we can address that or mitigate that for this ordinance by, first of all, communicating in advance prior to the effective date of September 1, letting them know what we're doing and why, and making it very clear that we already have a lot of these criteria either fully or partially established on some contracts. And so this is just an incremental shift up. It's not a wholesale change. Second, we'll update those attestation forms that you were talking about to make it easier to see everything on sort of one form.
It's bringing back memories. I remember we worked on that. Just check the box.
Right.
Check the box.
So you don't have to wade through, a huge document to find these different responsibility criteria. And then finally, we'll apply the criteria to the types of contracts where it's applicable. And so I think that is another critical piece that was incorporated into the striker.
I think you were easier on Councilor Mosqueda than me, Ken. But that's justified. All right. Thank you for that. That's really helpful, and we appreciate your engagement. Ken, I want to say as we're moving through this that you are maybe one of, I don't want to say unsung, but maybe not often sung enough about the work that you do here at the county, the expertise you bring. And one of the things I really appreciate about you is that you always keep an eye out for our small contractor and supplier program and building that up in the face of a lot of challenges imposed on us by state law. But as proposals come forward, operational changes are suggested, you've really been a values-driven leader here in the government to make sure that we're walking our talk with respect to that program and not doing anything to harm it. And I want to express my personal gratitude in this public forum for your work in that space. It has not gone unnoticed.
Thank you. And I work with a great team. So, I just feel like I have a great team to advance this. So thank you.
Very good. Okay, Councilor Mosqueda, would you like to introduce our panel of guests?
We do have an incredible panel for this item as well. Mr. Chair, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to have this crew. Matt Haney, SEIU 6 is with us. Stefan Moritz, Unite Here Local 8, and we may have a security member with us here today who couldn't make it. Okay, no problem. Thank you so much to Matt and Stefan for being here. Mr. Chair, would it be okay if I made some comments to introduce the topic here? I wanted to again just thank everybody who's already spoken, the good chair for your past work on this, on the responsible contracting legislation to begin with. This builds on that concept you already had in place that the public dollar should be used to advance the public good. That again is at the heart of this legislation. And the principles have been enshrined, but we're just building upon those, especially in light of the federal context that's happening. This legislation is an effort to try to further define and delineate what it means to be a responsible bidder and to have responsibility criteria. Again, thanks to co-sponsors, Councilmember Quinn, Councilmember Barron, and Councilmember Dembowski for your co-sponsorship. And as you heard from Brandy, I want to thank her for her tremendous work. Speaking of lots of hours poured into drafting legislation, thank you for all of your work, and to Kendall Moore, of course, as well, our legal counsel, in partnership with the executive team and members of the labor and business community. We had the chance to brief folks at Tabor 100 and to talk through this legislation with them, in addition to members of the Latino Chamber, and all of the folks that we've talked to have talked about how important it is to see this type of values-based criteria be further delineated. I want to thank members of the labor community and a broader community who are here today, SEIU 6, Unite Here, Teamsters 117, ATU, MLK Labor, and many of our colleagues who provided feedback on some of the content here today, who asked some good questions and had some good ideas for inclusion. That also includes Councilmember Balducci, who asked some great questions that led to some of the enhancements that you are seeing in some of the amendments that we're bringing forward. But a special thanks to the executive team. Thanks again to Ken Guy, Michael White, Penny Lipso, the entire team who worked directly with with our office and central staff as well. I even had the chance to meet Sandy and Terry at Tabor 100 and talk through the legislation with them. Sandy, for example, 25 years within the department, had some great ideas for how to make this workable and make sure that we're not, as we talked about, unintendedly slowing down the procurement process or creating barriers for small businesses that we are aiming to help. We also, I think, wanted to make sure that we're furthering our contracting goals to make sure that government works, and we organized the amendments to make sure that that was really reflected here. So thank you to all of those who provided feedback, and a special note of appreciation for the suggestion to move from demonstration to attestation. That is something that the small businesses and I think bidders and the department all benefit from. We all collectively benefit when it is streamlined in the application process and the review process, when we can get folks to get through the process and evaluated according to this responsibility criteria when and if applicable. And with that, I'll stop and save my comments for the rest of the discussion. I note that there's an important list of amendments that we talked about, but most importantly, thanks to you all for your feedback on the amendments and Striker 1, which we're talking to today.
All right, would you like to introduce that?
And again, Stefan Moritz, Unite Here, Local 8, and Matt Haney, SEIU Local 6. Thanks for being here with us.
Thank you, Chair Dembowski, Councilmember Mosqueda, council members. My name is Stefan Moritz. I'm the Vice President of MLK Labor, and I'm also the Secretary-Treasurer of my union, Unite Here Local 8. We represent hospitality workers in King County. I think on behalf of the King County Labor Movement, I would like to thank you this morning for considering this piece of legislation. We're very excited that this ordinance implements criteria that will ensure the highest possible labor standards for the delivery of services specifically. By considering minimum labor standards as part of the process, you will increase the quality of jobs that are directly tied to the county, but also in King County overall, right? You push up all of us, we're all in the same boat together. So that's really exciting. The labor movement has successfully advocated for these labor standards in various jurisdictions around King County, and we believe the results have been extremely positive. I want to mention a few examples that I personally have worked on, but there's many more obviously out there. At SeaTac Airport, in the bidding process for restaurant leases in the terminals, the Port of Seattle has developed a job quality questionnaire, which essentially means that bidders compete for leases in part, not only, there's obviously other criteria as well, based on the quality of the jobs they provide. And in other words, the better the wages, the better the benefits, the better the retirement, the better your chance of winning contracts is. And I think that has shifted the focus and created a culture. And now we see as a result that the quality of jobs at the airport in restaurants has really gone up over the last few years as a result of this policy. In the city of Seattle, under the leadership of Councilmember Mosqueda, we passed protections from sexual harassment for hotel workers, as well as standards around health care and workloads in the hospitality industry. This gave both workers a voice and peace of mind regarding their safety at work. It improved access to health care at a much more affordable price. And we're excited to see that this ordinance incorporates these issues into the criteria that you will evaluate procurements under. Finally, I want to express our collective support for the inclusion of environmental and energy efficiency considerations, as the fight against the climate crisis is increasingly also a fight for frontline workers and their impact and their communities and the impacts that the climate crisis has on communities. So thank you so much for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions, but yeah, I'm excited about this.
Stefan, thanks for that perspective and input. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Matt.
Thank you. Chair Dembowski, members of the committee, Matt Haney, I'm the Director of Strategic Research and Affairs with SEIU 6. We represent about 10,000 workers, mostly here in King County. Chair, I appreciated you noting earlier that 1 in 4 King County residents is foreign-born. In my membership, and probably yours as well, it's closer to 4 in 4. I think recognizing the work that immigrant workers do, how they contribute to our economy and our society and everything. I think it's just something we need to continue to notice and appreciate. Unfortunately, a lot of immigrant workers whose language or their first language isn't English are vulnerable to exploitation by unscrupulous contractors. And I think what this legislation does is it respects workers, it levels the playing fields, it upholds the public good, but it also protects the county. And one example I would like to point out, so in the 13 years of working labor, some of the biggest exploitation I have seen is in the janitorial franchise industry, where these franchises sell jobs. They go out and secure a bid. They sell the job for $10,000. They misclassify the workers as independent contractors, although they control everything about it, including the tools that they use to do their jobs. The franchises bill the client directly, then they extract franchise fees, advertising fees, administrative fees, and then in the end, when the worker gets paid, it's often less than minimum wage. And how having protection from those kind of contractors, or not having that protection, opens up the county to being held accountable for any wage theft be held as a secondary employer. We've seen in this industry. Recently, the state passed a law that said if you're providing services to a building, so a janitor, a security officer, a landscaper, and you're a victim of wage theft, you now have the right to put a lien on the building where you worked. So we could have security officers securing a county building who's a victim of wage theft, and it turns back and there's a lien on the county for that to collect those dues. So this really protects them, or it protects you and the workers. And security, just to speak to it for a little bit, we've seen an explosion in security over the last 5 years. And that means a lot of fly-by-night security contractors are entering our market. Security has one of the highest turnover rates that we see, especially in the small contractors. So this helps the retention, right? Loss of workers costs the county money. They have to be retrained and everything. So it protects the county that way. But this also levels the playing field for the contractors, the people who are bidding. So you don't have contractors that come in and cut corners, don't follow regulations because it pulls money out of their pockets, who are then able to bid cheaper because they're not treating their workers fairly. This levels the playing field and makes sure all contractors are at the same place. So I greatly encourage this committee to support this bill. I want to thank Councilmember Mosqueda, sponsors of this bill. I know there's a lot of work that went into it by the executive staff and the council staff, and so I just want to say we appreciate it. We feel like we're heading in a good direction.
Very good, thank you. Councilor Mosqueda, I'm reminded of what motivated me to bring forward the original legislation. Not what, but who. Her name was Linda Romanovich, and she was a carpenter here at the county. She's still living, but she no longer works for the county. And on my very first day showing up to this job, I think was February 12th, 2013, day after I was appointed, Linda was in my new office doing some work to get it ready. And she said, Rod, you know, the things that we are competing against here is contracting out our work to folks that underbid the cost for the county to do it directly. And she said, you should look into that. You should take some action on that to make sure that contractors who are cutting corners are not taking away our work. And I wanted to share that it was, the original idea came from a frontline represented worker to look into it. And Linda's a wonderful person, and I miss seeing her around here. But it's nice to see this building come forward. Would you like to put the legislation before us for action, Councilmember Mosqueda?
Mr. Chair, for Linda, I move proposed ordinance number 2025-0093 related to establishing responsibility criteria.
All right, that's before us. So would you like to start offering amendments?
I move striking amendment S1, Mr. Chair.
S1 is before us, and that has been discussed, and you've taken a lot of input on it. As you talk about it, I just want to thank you for taking a later suggestion that I had, which is in section 1 sub K, which says basically, once you've got the contract, keep living by the rules. And if you, my concern was companies are sold, new management can come in, and what might start off as a company that complies could turn into one that isn't complying. And I wanted to have the authority of the county to be able to terminate it in those situations. Thank you for including that language in your striking amendment, and I'll let you speak to other elements.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for that piece of feedback. And again, striking amendment S1 is really the heart of this legislation that we're talking about now, because it includes all of the suggestions from partners, council members, and especially from the executive team. Thanks for the ongoing partnership since June of last year on getting feedback from this concept. The striking amendment was able to be crafted in a way that gives the executive and FBOT discretion about how the criteria applies in which situations. And that helps to address the question that was raised: how does this apply to small mom and pops as well to larger businesses? The criteria applies only to contracts over $100,000, and in working with the executive, we've written the language to ensure that that extends current practices of giving the executive discretion to apply responsible bidder criteria to bids where appropriate and as applicable. The comments that we heard directly from the department personnel about how the S1 striker will be applied is that it allows for them to be surgical in their application, apply where necessary, and recognize the nuances of bids and bidders. Again, thanks for the great partnership that we've had with the executive, labor, and business partners who provided feedback. I'm really excited that it was mentioned that there's a similar policy and practice at the City of Seattle. We have a comparison tool. Thanks again to Brandy Parabella for central staff for walking through that direct comparison so we can see the 19 criteria as compared to the City of Seattle and see how we're in many ways working in harmony. I'm really glad that the county, as you've heard today, thank you again to Director Guy, has talked about how they can adapt current practices and apply the criteria going forward, and do that in partnership through, I'm going to say, rulemaking, developing how this will be applicable prior to the implementation date later this fall. We heard stories from the Latino Chamber and Tabor 100 about people who wanted to do business with the county but were being undercut by those who don't pay the wages that workers are owed. And sometimes that means sub-minimum wages, under the table, aren't paying unemployment insurance or workers' comp. Nobody wants to be undercut by someone who's not playing on a level playing field. Similarly, we want to make sure that we're lifting up and investing in high road employers who are investing in our workforce. I'm really thrilled. Thank you very much to Matt and Stefan, to your members at Unite Here and SEIU 6 for helping to illustrate the importance of why these investments are so critical. We've heard this morning that this policy will have a real impact in positive ways, and I want to thank you for the time that it took to bring forward the suggestions, help us with the amendments here today, and to make sure that we got it right. So again, huge kudos to the partnership that we've had with the executive and members of the labor and business community.
Very good. On the striking amendment, Councilmember Quinn.
Yeah, maybe I'll start with, I really appreciate Ken Guy, our conversation as this legislation started kind of gaining momentum, but I wanted to specifically say, and this is why I really appreciate this striking amendment. Councilmember Mosqueda, I mean, you know, when we first started this conversation, I was very adamant that we had kind of line 9 and line 16, and I'll just say specifically around Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, Washington State Office of Minority and Women Business Enterprises, and then line 16, it talks about the bidder or proposer can demonstrate support for growth in certified small businesses and federal disadvantaged business enterprise. I think when we were talking, this was an opportunity to show a greater partnership, right? As we see federal funding be challenged or questioned if we would receive it. And it was an opportunity to partner with community-based organizations and labor, right? And have a shared standard that we can move forward. And so I would just say thank you for the striking amendment. Thank you for keeping it in. And I think an example of the success, as mentioned, was to go to Tabor 100s, to share the information with Ollie Garrett, and the response and support of this piece in the legislation is good. And I would just say 21 years working at this. I mean, Ken, we've been talking about how we can continue to improve and build partnership, but here was a great opportunity. So thank you for, one, fighting with me to keep that in there, and then also just understanding the reason why the partnership. So thank you.
Very nice. Thank you, Councilmember Quinn. Okay, all in favor of striking Amendment S1, say aye.
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 Any opposed? S1 carries.
Sorry, Chair Dombrowski, I was trying to go on red. There are 2 line amendments to the striking amendment.
Well, we better take those up. And before we get to point 5? All right. We've got a point 5 as well.
Point 5, amendments point 5 and 1 are to the striking amendment S1.
All right. So we've got the striking amendment approved, but we need to amend the striking amendment before we do that. All right, so give us our order. Line amendments first?
Sorry, this is taking longer than it usually does. Yes, line amendments first, and then you'll vote on S1 as amended.
All right.
And then title amendment T1.
Councilmember Mosqueda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Amendment 0.5.
Point 5 is before us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you also heard from Brandy Parabello from Central Staff, a short briefing on this. I'll give a little bit of context to this. Amendment 0.5 revises the language to make it clear the legislative intent behind this policy is to apply labor standards that relate specifically to labor harmony where there is a clear proprietary interest. Labor harmony works to serve the business interests of the county. For example, it's our priority interest not to have a labor dispute or a strike, for example, at the King County International Airport, where we want airplanes to come and go. We also are all served well when garbage is picked up and occurs regularly and on time. These are just 2 examples of where labor harmony is in the business and proprietary interests of the county. The process of evaluating the county's proprietary interest, as I understand, is already a practice that the county applies generally, and we just wanted to be crystal clear to reiterate where it applies in the efficient procurement process. And finally, there are just a few items that clean up the text to make sure that we'd recognize that not every business is going to be a large business, so we are cleaning up the text to reflect that this is a broader scope and not all of those items apply to every size business. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Very good. Reflecting further feedback and input, Amendment point 5. All in favor of Amendment point 5 to the striking amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries. Next amendment.
Shall I go back to Amendment number 1? Mr. Chair, I move Amendment number 1.
Amendment 1 is before us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I won't begin to describe this. I might leave this over to Central Staff. As we were finalizing the legislation, thanks to Central Staff and Kendall Moore, our legal team, they realized that there was a section that was in this proposed ordinance that was reflecting old code that was outdated. And at the suggestion of the legal team and Central Staff, they decided it might be better to update that old code now since we had it in front of us and just clean that up.
Yes, once again, Brandy Parabello with Council Central Staff. An earlier version of legislation in 2012 to this section of code, when it was added to the code, it was accidentally duplicated, and so it's a technical correction to remove duplicative language in an existing section of code.
All right, sounds like a good idea. All in favor of Amendment 1, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Aye. That carries. Any further amendments?
We have title amendment, but nothing else.
Is that T1? Okay.
So what you would do next is vote on the underlying, or on the striker now, and then title amendment T1.
All right, turning to the striking amendment as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That carries. Title, T1 is before us. All in favor of T1 shall conform the title to the amended ordinance, say aye.
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 Any opposed? T1 carries. Now, turning to the ordinance, Pardon?
Mr. Chair, just
I
so
moved
for the
it.
record, I'd love to move Title Amendment T1.
I heard
as
the
your
motion
partner.
even if they didn't. All right, turning to the underlying ordinance as amended. Councilmember Mosqueda to close. Councilmember Quinn, you wanted to offer comments? Nope. Councilmember Mosqueda.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to double check. Thank you very much to the clerks and to central staff. Did we get that all in the order needed? Okay, seeing nods. Mr. Chair, colleagues, members of the executive team, and our community from labor and business at the county at large. I think today is an important day. If you put this in the context of what's happening at the national level, you'll see that 100 days ago, on January 21st, the federal government ceased its practice of ensuring that federal contracts were striving to end discriminatory contracting. That's an executive order that was put into place just 100 days ago. That went the wrong direction. And here in King County, in Martin Luther King County, we are showing that we remain committed to the values-based contracting components that make this county stronger, that we want to reward and respect responsible bidders based on those who are paying workers what they are owed, at least the minimum wage, and that we are not rewarding those who are circumventing their responsibilities under the law or to their workers. We especially want to invest, as the panelists and my good chair of budget noted, investing in the local economy, the local environment, and the health of our local community. Importantly, as Councilmember Quinn noted, we want to continue to elevate those who are wanting to do partnership and work with the county to support the growth of certified small businesses, to support federally disadvantaged business enterprise program participants, to support WIMBY participants and other bona fide small business development and those companies who also subcontract with WIMBYs. Through this legislation, we are helping to support those who are committed to mentorship programs, capacity building initiatives, policies promoting small business inclusion, and support those who are recruiting and hiring from economically distressed areas of the county. This is a true win-win-win. And my hope with this legislation is to show that we at the county are remaining strong in our values-based purchasing commitments, that we are expanding where necessary to invest in the public good by investing in workers, environment, and healthy workplaces, and that we are giving back to the local workforce, our environment, and the community through this legislation. I'm really excited about the final product here, and I thank you all for the joint partnership and hope for a final vote on the amended legislation.
Was this immigration stuff? Thank you very much, Councilor Mosqueda. Before we call for the vote, I just want to take a moment to recognize what's occurring here from my perspective as the chair. You're seeing a master legislator joined with experience from around the dais to put forward a very well thought out and developed piece of legislation. Councilmember Quinn has spent 2 decades from the government side working on issues helping small minority contractors and workers and provided input. There's language in here that we haven't talked about, but that reflects the changing challenges with respect to immigrants and refugees in the country. And you noted almost 100% of your represented workers are there. This legislation adds additional protection from them. That comes from Councilmember Barone's suggestion. Incredible. Councilor Mosqueda has brought her years of working from the labor side forward and her expertise there. This is important legislation, well-crafted, worked out in partnership with the executive branch, so it's actually achievable in terms of the policy you're trying to do. And I thought as chair it would be appropriate to just recognize for those watching what's occurring here, because this has been extremely well done, and I want to commend you, Councilor Mosqueda, for your work and your team's work on it.
Chair.
Oh, sorry, Councilmember Balducci.
I'm so sorry. I'm joining you from the transit system.
That's okay. Very
and
good.
I missed my opportunity, but I just wanted to say much what you just said. I really appreciated so much the transparent and communicative approach that Councilmember Mosqueda and her team brought to this. I had questions about implementation. Those have been taken seriously, incorporated into the striking amendment. The values behind it are 100%, I think. I don't think there's anybody on the council that wouldn't support the value. Making sure we can do it and not exclude people in the process was important to me. And I just really appreciate the sponsor being so open to hearing that and to working through implementation questions so that this can move forward. It's really It's really the way they work together as a body, and I appreciate you.
Very good. Thank you so much for adding that perspective. Very good. All right. You want to say anything in your defense, Teresa? No. Okay, let's call the roll on final passage of proposed ordinance 2025-0093.
Thank you, Chair Dombowski. Councilmember Balducci?
Aye.
Councilmember Baron?
Aye.
Councilmember Mosqueda?
Aye.
Councilmember Quinn?
Aye.
Councilmember Perry? Councilmember Zahalai?
Aye.
Chair Dombowski?
Aye.
Vote is 6 ayes, 0 noes, with Councilmember Perry excused.
All right, the committee has given a unanimous do pass recommendation to 2025-0093. We'll expedite that to the full council on their calendar. Excellent work, Brandy. And with that, thanking our guests who have joined us today, sitting through 2.25 hours of committee work. Appreciate it and appreciate your input. And if there's nothing further to come before the committee, we are adjourned.
Today on Community Cooking, we have guest chef Debbie Bernstein back in the kitchen whipping up another great meal. First, a spicy peanut chicken stir fry, then for dessert, chocolate chip wontons. We're cooking with some of the best chefs from right here in our own community. So grab a seat and get comfortable because we have another great meal for you. This is your Community Cooking. Hi, and welcome to Community Cooking. I'm your host, Maria Prekachis, and I'm always excited to have my friend and guest chef, Debbie Bernstein, back in the studio. Welcome.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
I always love it when you're here because, A, it's easy. You feed me what I like, and it's always delicious. So today, spicy chicken peanut stir fry.
Yes.
I like it already. And then for dessert, chocolate wontons, but we'll get to that in a minute. Tell me about the ingredients for the stir fry.
Okay, well, of course, we have chicken, some cornstarch and egg to start with. Then we have salt and pepper, because every dish, salt, pepper, garlic, because I don't make anything without it. Then in the sauce, we have chicken broth, soy sauce, rice vinegar, your chili garlic paste, because you love that so much.
Yes.
Sugar, cornstarch, some peanuts, and some zucchini.
Okay, perfect. I love it. And we put the wok on, you want a hot wok.
Correct, correct.
I never get mine hot enough.
Yeah, you can cook without it hot, but it just takes forever.
Okay, and I want to ask how I love, you always have stories for how you came up with recipes. How'd you come up with this one?
We were in the mood for something stir fry, and these were the ingredients I had in the refrigerator, so this is what we had.
I love it. It's awesome. All right, what do we start with? The chicken?
We're going to start with the chicken. So we're going to put that in the bowl.
And you did chicken breast, which is my favorite. She always brings in my favorite. It's a beautiful thing.
And it probably would have more flavor with dark meat, but I don't like dark meat.
I know. We have a lot of the same taste buds. I don't like dark meat either.
And we're going to put an egg white.
And egg white is not, don't be afraid. It's easy to separate. They sell gadgets and stuff. I'm like, no, it's fine. Just
and
like
if you
that.
get some yolk in there, it's not going to hurt anything.
Okay.
And then we're going to put a little bit of cornstarch.
And that will help it thicken up in there?
Well, it kind of seals the chicken, so the chicken stays moist, and then later it makes the sauce a little thicker.
Okay.
And then, of course, a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper.
Salt, a little bit of pepper.
And since I have eggy hands, we won't use my fingers.
You're so good. A little pepper.
There, and we're just going to mix this up a little.
So a lot of people, they'll do their wash, then the flour, but I like doing it all in one bowl because we don't like to do dishes.
Easy. Most of my recipes are one bowl, one pot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just...
Which is so wonderful. And then I don't even, half the time, it's great to serve on serving platters and present, but if you're home, serve it out of the pan.
Yeah, it goes right on a plate out of the pan.
Yeah.
Why wash more?
I don't wash. That's for him to do.
So we're going to put a little bit of oil.
Okay, and it is smoking hot, so that's good.
And we want it to be hot.
And what kind of oil do you like?
Typically, with a stir fry, I'll use a vegetable oil. For everything else, I use olive oil.
Okay.
But you can use canola, you can use corn. It really doesn't matter. I don't use as much oil as most stir fries. Usually, you're frying deep in the oil, and that's just not as healthy. So.
No, and you're always, I mean, look at you. You're always healthy and flavorful. That's all we care about. And see, it should sizzle like that. Sometimes I put mine in and not so much. All right, I'll take your dirty dishes.
Always. Will you wash them too?
Sure. You cook, I'll wash.
So while that's cooking up, we're going to cut the zucchini.
Okay.
So it's real simple, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy. So we're just going to cut it into quarters.
I like bite size, and your chicken is not even quite an inch bite size, which is nice.
Right. I just don't have to have a knife that way.
Yeah.
So we're just going to cut it into 4.
Then you can eat it with chopsticks.
And just cut it up. And again, it doesn't matter if you like it thinner, do it thinner. If you like it thicker, if you want bigger pieces. You know, my cooking is all about my family. My family doesn't like vegetables to have texture.
I have not met, only your mother, the rest of your family, and I can't wait to because they are hilarious.
So let's let that cook just a little bit more. Do you want to cut the second one?
Yeah. I will cut it up. I like everything bite-sized because I like to eat with chopsticks, especially for stir fry. But I eat with chopsticks a lot, though.
And we're just, on this part, we're just kind of cooking the outside because it still has a lot more cooking to do. we're just going to layer things in.
Oh, okay. Again, one pot, which we love. And I love zucchini. Now, what other vegetables have you used with this?
Broccoli, cauliflower, carrots, bell peppers.
I think I like it when it's just one or two veggies and then the chicken.
I feel like if you do too many, then you don't really taste anything.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So the next step, we're just going to throw the vegetables in.